Hi, Dr. Abrams. My mom was unable to join me this time, so I'm just going to be explaining the audiogram and the results to you. So first we're going to look at the pure tone audiometry. And this is when you had the headphones on and you were listening to those different frequencies, so those low frequencies like beep and those high frequencies like beep. And sometimes they were loud, sometimes they were really soft. So we're just going to talk about that first and the results that we're seeing through that. So these numbers at the top, the 250 to 8,000, that was the frequencies that I was just talking about. So the lower frequencies were those beeps and the higher frequencies were the beeps. And then these numbers on this side are looking at how loud the signal or the sound needed to be for you or anyone who has this exam to hear. And so anything from 25 and down, so 25 to -10, that's what we consider normal hearing. But when a response is at 25, between 25 and 120, or after 25, so 30 to 120, that is indicative of a hearing loss. So as we look at your results, these blue X's are is your hearing in that left ear. So everything is in this normal range, which is awesome. But when we're looking at your right ear, which are these red circles, we're seeing that these high frequencies are in the normal hearing range. Awesome. But these lower frequency sounds, you need a little more loudness to hear those. So that's telling us that there is some hearing loss with that ear. And when we see hearing loss just in one ear, that tells us that there might be some problems with localizing, so determining from which side or wherever in the room that a sound is coming from. It might be hard to pinpoint that if there's hearing loss just in one ear. And then when we do have that hearing loss, it usually, a little bit of hearing loss, it usually means that things need to be louder, which you told us during when we were asking you questions, that sometimes you're feeling that things need to be a little louder. So that makes sense based on what we're seeing with this test. We also completed the tympanometry, which was when you had that little device in your ear and you felt the different changes in pressure. That is really looking at how the ear canal is functioning. And so in our left ear, everything's working great. We're not seeing anything out of the norm. When we're looking at our right ear, though, what was seen on this test was that there might be something going on with that right ear because we're not seeing a normal tympanogram or a normal graph when we did that test. And then for the other assessment that we did, we looked at OAEs, which are the otoacoustic emissions. And in the left ear, that's present. So that's telling us the ear is working as it should, that there's normal hearing. So similar to what we saw in the tympanogram and our pure tone audiometry, everything in that left ear is looking great. In our right ear, it was absent for the OAEs, so that's telling us that there is some hearing loss. We usually do that first so that we can get an idea of what we might be looking for as we do the other types of tests. Another thing that we looked at was the speech audiometry. And so in the left ear, that was 96%, so you're hearing things and you're able to hear speech. In the right ear, it's 88%, which is a little lower than we would like to see, and that's just telling us that there's hearing loss, which we've seen with the other tests, and that is impacting how you're hearing speech. And so it might be more difficult to hear what others are saying or things that are on the TV, especially if they're not at a higher sound. So based on the results of all these tests and the symptoms that you explained to us during the case history, so the vertigo, the rushing noise, the hearing loss, or in that right ear that you've been experiencing, the variability of symptoms, the fullness and the stuffiness, and this data that we just talked about, or the results that we just talked about, based on that, it looks like you have what is called Meniere's disease. And this is an episodic in nature. It's episodic in nature, and so that's why there might be those fluctuations in the symptoms because of the episodic nature. And so Meniere's disease really is the overproduction or underresorption of one of the main fluids that's in the ear that helps us hear, helps with balance, helps with movement, and so that's why we're also seeing that vertigo. I would like to refer you to an ENT just to make sure that this is what's going on, because I personally cannot make that diagnosis myself. And so I'd like to refer you to an ENT to figure everything out, to figure out what next steps might need to be. I'd also like for you to return for a follow-up visit to monitor your loss, your hearing loss, especially since what we are suspecting is episodic in nature. We want to kind of see how the hearing is at different times, and not just looking at this one audiogram that we completed today. One of the last things that I would suggest is trying to limit your consumption of caffeine. I know you love it. It's a hard thing to give up, trust me, I know, but trying to limit the caffeine and salt that might be in your diet might help with the symptoms, especially if the ENT does conclude that it is Meniere's disease. So those are just the 3 things to do now. I'll refer you to the ENT. You'll have a visit with them. I'll send him all of the tests and the results that I got today. So I'll refer you to the ENT, and then we can set up an appointment for a follow-up visit. And so we will see you very shortly. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.